You have a mission here at Kennesaw State University. What is that mission?
Well, I came here when I was invited to come here to accept the position of Goizueta Endowed Chair. The purpose was to establish a center where education could be done in such a way that demonstrates the benefits of a different way of approaching education with young children. And what I brought was the Montessori system of education, scientific research-based system of education, and I also brought national accreditation because our program is nationally accredited by the Montessori Accreditation Council for Teacher Education, MACT, which is the national association recognized by the Department of Education. I was personally, and my society, Pan American Montessori Society, were both instrumental in creating MACT, starting in 1986.
Would you say that education helps determine your future more than any other, or maybe the most significant factor?
Well, yes, early childhood education is much more important than university education. We're putting the money at the wrong end of the spectrum. Montessori made a point of that way back in her time, in the late 1890s and early 20th century. The teachers who ought to have the high salaries are the ones working with the youngest children, not those professors in the universities that come in twice a week to teach 2 courses and they're not doing some research to, if you don't do research and publish, then you perish. But they're not doing the valuable work that needs to be done with the children at a time in life when it makes an enormous difference. Do you use Google?
Yes, I do.
Both of the founders are Montessori children. Do you use Wikipedia? He was a Montessori child. There is a long list of outstanding people. Julia Child was a Montessori child, who looking back give credit to the fact that they had Montessori teachers for the success and the things they were able to achieve in life.
You've mentioned a correlation between the ability or the lack of ability to read and later jail terms. Can you expound on that? I know there's some research.
Well, there's a study done by the Annie Casey Foundation on why it's important to learn to read before 4th grade. And their research shows that, this is the Annie Casey Foundation, their research shows that 72% of the children in Georgia that move from the 3rd grade, graduate into the 4th grade, cannot read at a level competent enough to be successful in 4th grade. And that's 72%. And unfortunately, there are 20 states that their departments of corrections are using the number of children who cannot read at 4th grade to decide how many new jail cells they're going to need 20 years later. Because many of those children never learn to read, drop out of school, and get into trouble, end up in jail.
When you opened your first Montessori school, you began with just 12 kids enrolled.
Yes. Pre-enrolled.
Oh, pre-enrolled,
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of the week, that increased to 24.
Yes.
And by Christmas, you had 82.
Yeah.
And by June 1971, you had 138 kids, and we're in the black. What led to that success?
So I started advertising in the paper. We found a house to rent, an empty house. And I put ads in the paper saying that I was going to open a school on the 22nd of September. This is from the 22nd of July to the 22nd of September. In 2 months, I didn't know it was impossible, so I opened it with teachers who were available that had Montessori training. And I opened two primary classrooms like this for children 3 to 6, and a 6 to 9, and a 9 to 12. And I had the teachers, and we ordered the materials from Holland, and they came by air. And Carolina paid for them, and we installed them. And on the 23rd of September, we were open for business with those 12 children, pre-enrolled. And people used to come to this empty building where I had a table and 4 chairs and talk to a crazy man who said he was going to have a school there in just a few weeks. But we did have it, and it was successful because Montessori is such a unique way of addressing the needs of every child individually. You don't worry about assessing the whole class at once. That doesn't really make any sense because every child is different. We assess every child every day. We know where he is in his development, and we're making notes to know what material to show him next in practical life, motor development, language, sensorial. And this is the one system that provides sensorial education. We don't hear anybody else talking about sensorial education. Our senses need to be prepared to be successful in other areas of development. And this classroom with all these wonderful materials here for sensorial development makes that possible.
When we first met, you told me there are always challenges, there are also solutions. Decide what you need to do, what you can do, and then do it. Is that the philosophy by which you lead your life?
Well, it's a little simpler than that. I tell my students that I did what I knew until I knew better. And then I did that. So I was, I did my doctoral studies at Berkeley and learned a great deal about education and teaching adults and in higher education. And but when I discovered Montessori, I had to go back and sit on the floor and learn how to be a Montessori teacher, learn how to teach young children. I was pretty long in the tooth, as they say, already when that happened to me. And yet it was a wonderful opportunity to do something that has become my life's work for 43 years.
How many Montessori schools are there in the United States?
About 5,000, I guess. That's the estimate that you hear. Not sure what it's based upon, but I think it's probably fairly true. There may be more than that because some schools are not affiliated with any society and they do the work they do. And around the world are well over 25,000.
In the state of Georgia, how would you rate Georgia educationally?
As far as Montessori is concerned, Georgia is very good because we've had Montessori training going on here since 1960. Yeah. But as far as public education, we were 50th at the bottom of it in all the states. Then Mississippi got worse, and so it moved us up to 49. And recently, other states have had problems, and so I think we may be up to 37 now.
So we've moved up by default.
Probably so, yes. We haven't really found a way to improve education in Georgia. My own view is that if we find a way to teach teachers in pre-K programs how to teach reading when the children are with them at 4, those children will know how to read when they hit the 4th grade, and we will make an enormous change in the education of the state. I have a way of preparing 100 teachers a year online, but I haven't found a way to fund it yet.
You have a lot of views that run counter to general public assumptions.
Well, community views, what is it? Common views are often wrong. Think of how many centuries people were absolutely positive that the sun rotated around the earth.
So based on your experience, what advice would you have to the next generation? You're 89 years old now?
88, yeah.
88,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for the next generation coming along?
Well, if you're talking about education, and if you're a young couple with children, do whatever it's necessary for them to get this foundation of preparation from birth to 6 years of age. It will transform the life of your child. It will make it possible for your child to achieve things that would not otherwise be possible in their lives. If you're a young person in college, not married yet, or going to school, and find something you love to do and devote yourself to it and do it as well as you can, better than anybody else, and you'll have a wonderful life ahead. If you do what you love, then you have a wonderful life.
You have had a wonderful life, so...
I'm still having
and you're having a wonderful
I'm still having a wonderful life.
But when that life is over, which I hope will be a long time in the future...
I'm shooting for 100.
Okay, good. So am I. How would you like to be remembered?
My goodness. I'd like to pass on my motto.
And what is your motto?
I did what I knew until I knew better. And then I did that. If people do that in their lives, and they're always looking for the better thing to do, they'll have a rich life.
Can you briefly explain what the Montessori system, educational system is?
Briefly.
Briefly.
It's the hard part. I can compare it to public education. Maybe that's the easiest way. Public education uses an old German system of classification. It classifies children by age. 5-year-olds together, 6-year-olds together, 8-year-olds together, 10-year-olds together, as if that made them the same. Do you have siblings?
I have siblings.
Are they the same as you?
Absolutely not.
And they're the same gene pool. So how can all of these different gene pools produce children that are the same just because they're the same age? One friend of mine said, we could put them together by hair coloring and they wouldn't be any more alike or more different than they are by age. And so the public school system puts children, classifies one age together, and they go through a class for 1 year, then they go to the next class for 1 year and to the next class 1 year. And there's very little going on between the teachers of the different grades to help make sure that children are having success along the way. And the curriculum can be anything. You go from one school to another, from one county, from one state to another, and the curriculum in the public schools is just anything. And the teacher has to teach the whole class at once, and so she pitches to the ones in the middle, and hoping they get it, and the ones who already know the material are bored and probably not behaving properly. And then there are those who don't get it, and it's going over their heads, and they're frustrated. It's a very ineffective and inefficient process. Montessori is different in these several ways. First, we don't classify the children by age. We group them by 3 age levels. Birth to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 18. We have Montessori programs on all those levels. And during those 3 years, I'm the teacher of the classroom, and I have these children for 3 years. They come in at 3, and they go out when they're 6. And so at the beginning of each year, I don't have a whole new class of children I never saw before. I have only, for instance, if I have a class of 24, I have 8 of each age, I have 8 new children coming in. And the other 16 children know what it's all about in this classroom with all of these materials. They've been here 1 and 2 years, and they come in and go right to work. And the influence of those children who are already there knowing what to do is powerful upon the young ones coming in. And they learn very quickly how this classroom works, and they want to have the same relationship with the teacher that the other children have. And so Montessori doesn't classify the children, it classifies the curriculum. The curriculum, everything on these shelves around here, all around in this room, is classified, it's ordered, it's structured in a way so that, and every child gets an individual lesson. You don't do it to everybody at once. And you keep track of every child has an individual lesson plan. And you teach each child one at a time and show them a particular material that they can then work with on their own. So we have enough material, we have a very carefully developed, scientifically developed learning environment where all of the materials for practical life and motor development, for sensorial development, for language development, where we are here for math, for science and art and music and culture, all of this material is here, and the children have 3 years to go through all of this material.
We're in your wonderful classroom now, reputed to be the best Montessori classroom in the United States. Can you tell us a little bit about the classroom and how it's organized?
Well, it has these the same major areas that every Montessori classroom has. I have the benefit of having been collecting these materials now for 40 years, so I have materials that other people don't have. But one of the things that we have here that is not available in most other Montessori classrooms is a research-based language program. This is a very different program from the one used in other schools. Many Montessori schools have recapitulated to the public schools. The public schools teach Sprint, so they teach Sprint, so nobody can criticize their children when they go into public schools. But they're not reading the research. The research shows that teaching cursive like this, with only 4 approach strokes, and on 5 spaces instead of 3, that the child's hand goes up higher. The message from the brain is strong in the shoulder when they're this age, at 3, and very soft, not as strong as the fingers. So by using this movement, they're able to write more effectively, and by going up 2 levels and down 2 levels, they're able to make these letters more effectively. My dyslexic child learned to write and read easily with cursive because the letters hold hands and walk on the line. And there are only spaces between the words. If you're working with the print letters, the D, the B, the P, and the Q are all the same letter, just turn a different way. And drawing a circle and then expecting the child to be able to draw a line down like this, to touch the edge of the circle on this side to make a D, that's calligraphy. It's the hardest thing for young children who have the least skill in writing. And there's new research, very interesting research on the brain, that shows that if you write a printed letter, only the part of the right brain side that recognizes patterns lights up. But if you write a cursive letter, all the parts of the brain that light up when you read light up.